I remember the day they all turned their backs on me as clearly as if it were yesterday. The air in the room crackled with that familiar mix of disbelief and disdain, a tangible weight pressing down on me as I stood in the kitchen, trembling and clutching the latest research paper in my hands. The title, Ritual Agronomy, Unearthing the Forgotten Practices of Harvest, glared back at me, the bold script mocking my every intent. "George, this is nonsense," my father proclaimed, his voice shaking with anger. "You're going to ruin your life with this ridiculous obsession. Cultivating the land is one thing, but dabbling in the occult? It's insane." His words were a slap, a reminder that I was the family disgrace, a lost cause spiraling deeper into madness. My mother's silence spoke volumes, her wide eyes filled with a fear that mirrored my own. I had spent years fighting for my place at the table, and now here I was, an outcast in my own home. Even my sister, usually sympathetic, had joined in the laughter. "You'll lose your mind, George. Just let it go. Focus on something real." I had left that day with a heart full of bitterness and a mind ignited by a single spark of defiance. They didn't understand. They couldn't comprehend the urgency of my quest to uncover the forbidden practices whispered about in the shadowy corners of rural folklore. My pursuit of ritual agronomy was more than just a passion. It was a desperate need to expose the truth behind the blight that had decimated countless crops and livelihoods, a truth they were too comfortable to confront. Years passed, filled with nights spent poring over ancient texts, seeking out the stories buried in folklore, and venturing into the darkest reaches of farmland where no crop dared to grow. I faced ridicule from the academic community, but I pressed on. Fueled by the shadows lurking beneath the soil, my obsession morphed into expertise. I became renowned for unearthing what others refused to acknowledge. I was a pariah turned prophet, a disgrace turned warning. With each revelation, I felt the land shift beneath me, a sentient force reacting to my probing. I discovered ceremonies that had once been the heartbeat of agrarian societies, rituals that danced with the edge of despair and hope. Cultivating the land was a sacred act. It demanded respect for the cycle of life and death, something I had learned too late. The more I uncovered, the more I understood. The land itself had a soul, and it was angry. Now, as I stood on the threshold of my childhood home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the lawn, I felt a creeping dread. The air was thick with a tension that made my skin prickle. I had returned not as the broken man they had mocked, but as a harbinger of the horrors they had dismissed. "George." My mother's voice trembled as she opened the door, her face a mask of confusion and concern. "Is that really you?" "Mother, we need to talk," I replied, the weight of my knowledge like a stone in my gut. "I've seen things you won't believe, but you need to listen." The family gathered around the dining table, their faces painted with a strange mixture of worry and disbelief. I recounted the tales of the cursed land, of the blights that emerged from ancient rites, of the darkness that lurked just below the surface. I described how the soil whispered, revealing the truths the world now feared but could not ignore. "Enough of this nonsense," my father bellowed, his voice rising above the table. "You think you're some kind of expert? You're just a delusional man trying to peddle fear." But I pressed on, recounting the nightmarish visions I had experienced while conducting my research, the shadows that danced in the fields, and the visceral horrors that had seized my soul. They needed to understand the danger of their disbelief. I could feel the darkness pressing in around us, a predatory force drawn to my words like a moth to flame. Then the room shifted. A sudden chill swept through the air, and the laughter of the mocking whispers began to echo from the walls. The shadows thickened, pulsating with their own life, and I knew the land was listening. The very fields we had once tilled and cherished were now wailing in pain, summoning forth the horrors I had unearthed. My family's mocking laughter turned to gasps of horror as the manifestations of my revelations broke free. Dark figures emerged from the corners, twisted manifestations of the land's rage, their eyes gleaming with the malevolence of forgotten rites. My family shrank back, terror etched into their faces as the reality of my words crashed down upon them. It was in that moment of sheer terror that they finally understood the cost of their disbelief. They had dismissed me, mocked my passion, and now they were face to face with the very darkness I had fought against, the terrors I had survived. It was no longer just my shame. It had become theirs. "George, please," my mother cried, reaching out toward me, her voice trembling. "Stop this. We believe you now." But it was too late. The shadows writhed around us, and I felt the darkness tighten its grip on my heart. My family had shunned the truth I bore, and now they would bear witness to its wrath. The land had turned against them, just as it had once turned against me. As the last vestiges of their laughter faded into echoes of despair, I stood rooted to the spot, a chilling realization dawning upon me. I had survived the darkness. I had faced it and emerged transformed. But for them, there would be no such redemption. The walls of the house trembled as the shadows enveloped us, a haunting reminder of the truths they had once scorned. I turned away, stepping back into the world that had become my sanctuary, as the screams of my family faded into the void, a chilling testament to what happens when disbelief becomes an unbearable reality. As I walked away, I felt the weight of the land on my shoulders, a bittersweet reminder of the knowledge I carried. I had not just become a warning, I had become the very darkness they had sought to deny, and I would carry that burden for the rest of my days, a solitary figure, haunted by the truth that had cost me everything and liberated me all at once, a chilling, poetic justice that echoed through the ages.